Um, Shariram yad avapnoti
Shariram yada vavapnodi
Nityapi Kramatsti Swaraha
yachabi ukramatishvaraha
Grihit Vaitani Samyati
grihitvaitani samyati
Vayur Gandham Ivasayat.
vayurgandhani vashayat.
The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to the other. As the air carries aromas, thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So, what Lord Krishna is saying here is we carry conceptions of life from one body to the other. In the past life, we may have one kind of conception, and then as we go into the next life, we carry a different kind of conception. In this way, we go from body to body. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says here the living entity is described as Ishvara, the controller of his own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade. And if he likes, he can move to a lower class. Minute independence is there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. Means the individual soul depends the type of body that it is acquiring. At the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him onto the next type of body. If he has made his consciousness like that of a cat or dog, he is sure to change to a cat or dog's body. And if he has fixed his consciousness on godly qualities, he'll change into form of a devata, demigod. And if he's in Krishna consciousness, he'll be transferred to Krishna Loka in the spiritual world and will associate with Krishna. It is a false claim that after annihilation of this body, everything is finished. So some people claim like that. After the body is getting annihilated, everything is getting finished. The individual soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. The soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and the present activities are background for the next body. So whatever we are doing, we are building our next body. One gets a different body according to karma, and he has to quit this body in due course. It is stated here that the subtle body, which carries the conception of the next body, develops another body in the next life. This process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling while in the body is called karshati, or struggle for existence. So we are struggling for our existence in different bodies that we take. But why are we taking different bodies? Because we have certain conceptions of life. Therefore, we carry those conceptions of life from one body to other. The example Krishna is giving is that the air is carrying aromas. Aroma means scent. So if you just spray a bottle of scent in one corner of the building, as the air carries it, it carries the scent to the other corner. Nobody has to physically carry it, right? So the air just, with a breeze, it just carries everything to the other end. In the same way, it is said that the conceptions that we have of life are also carried from body to body. So this is very important because each one of us will have changed bodies so many times in the past and will continue to do so unless we surrender to Krishna and get liberated. Otherwise, this thing will keep on continuing. Okay, any thoughts there? Any questions, comments?
Is it that we can do but service to Krishna means like service to poor people also, or only to in Krishna's temple?
So
Uh,
it is not a concept of just doing it in the temple or just doing it for poor people, right? So this
yeah.
entire universe is the creation of Krishna. So wherever we are, whichever corner of the universe we are in, we just continue to serve Krishna wherever we are.
Okay.
So yes, if you want to cook nicely and feed people some food, so offer it to Krishna first and feed the prasadam. But that's just one small aspect, right? There are so many problems
Hmm.
in the world. So all that will take a longer time. So it won't happen instantaneously. And it's not like just feeding the poor. That is the concept of Daridra Narayana. People say, okay, so I will only feed the poor people. Well, you know, everybody needs to be fed. It's not just the poor people. So, and everybody is poor in one sense because of lack of understanding of Krishna, and then they are struggling. The people also said, right? Karshati. Karshati means all these souls are struggling life after life. So at some point, we have to put an end to this struggle for existence. So this struggle for existence is continuing life after life.
Prabhu, I want to add something that Harivilas Maharaj always says. Manav Seva is not Madhav Seva, and Madhav Seva is Manav Seva. So just because we serve Manav or just human beings, it doesn't mean that Madhava is going to be automatically served. But when we serve Madhava, Manavas are automatically served.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point. That is very true. A lot of people say Manav Seva, Madhava Seva. Actually, it is Madhava Seva, Manav Seva. Because if you water the root of the tree, all the branches, Srila Prabhupada uses this example. If you water the root of a tree, all the branches are nourished. Otherwise, you'll have to go and nourish each little twig and each little leaf for the entire tree by spraying water on that. And that's not practical or necessary. You just pour water near the root of the tree, and the whole tree is nourished. So if you, and then here the root is the Supreme Lord. So if you worship the Supreme Lord in any of the forms, right? There are many, many forms we discussed last time around 6 different kinds of avatars: Guna Avatara, Leela Avatara, etc. So you could worship Rama, Narsimha, Vamana, Varaha. You could worship the Karnodaksha Vishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Kshirodaksha Vishnu, any form, but preferable form is Krishna because he is very easily accessible. He's like a little boy playing, so it's very easy to access him. So when you worship the Lord, everything else is taken care of. Right now, people are trying to do Manava Seva, right? They are saying, okay, somebody here in one city has corona, so let me give him treatment. Suddenly somebody else comes. There are no beds in the hospital. So you cannot do Manav Seva. Even if you wanted to do, you cannot do Manav Seva, right? So it's better to do Madhav Seva so that he can withdraw that coronavirus. You cannot withdraw on your own. Rajalakshmi, can you? Can you, even if you wanted to, can you stop coronavirus attacking the poor people in Brooklyn or Bronx in New York City?
No.
No, it's not possible. Like Mother Teresa tried. How many people she helped? A few hundred people. And there's so many other poor people. It's not possible. And then she dies. Right? So even having good intention is not sufficient. You should see how much capability you have. We have very limited capability for a very limited period of time, right? So somewhere between say 20 years of age and to maybe 40, maybe 60 years of age. So you have a small window where you can help other people. And after that time, you need help. Other people should help you. So this Manava Seva is not possible. Although some people think that it is possible, it's not possible. How many people can you help? Right now, After the coronavirus, now you have this, agitation about racism and police brutality and this and that. Can you go and help them? If you try to go and help, two things can happen. Either we may catch corona or we might be beaten in that, clash or protest. So you cannot do anything actually. You may think you can, but you cannot do anything. People are struggling and struggling. Lot of people want to do stuff, but they are unable to do stuff. Yeah. Does that clear your question, Mataji?
Yeah, yes, very much. Thank you.
Yeah. So because everybody is struggling, karshati, or struggle for existence, right? Even the president of the world's richest country is unable to do anything. One hand we have corona epidemic, other hand we have this whole protest and police attacking, that kind of epidemic. What can you do? You cannot do anything. Therefore, we have to understand from scriptures that there is a higher truth. The process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling while in this body is called struggle for existence. So we have to get out of this struggle for existence. Okay. So Mike Prabhu, thank you for joining. It's been a long time since we had you in our class.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay. So let's continue. Stotram. Srotram.
Stotram chakshusparshanam cha.
Okay, let's do word by word. Chakshuhu.
Chakshuhu
Sparsanam cha.
sparshanam cha.
Rasanam.
Rasanam
Granam.
granam
Evacha.
yevacha
Adhisthaya.
adhisthaya
Manaschayam.
manaschayam
Vishayan.
vishayan
Upasevate.
upasevate.
The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about by the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. This is very interesting, the way Krishna presents this. So, what is happening? Because of these conceptions of life that we carry from one body to another body, in the other body we obtain a type of ear. That's what he's saying, right? Srotram. Srotram means something that you are hearing. Chakshu means eyes. Sparshanam, touch. Rasanam, taste. Grihanam, like that, right? So all these different senses are being presented to us as a part of this other body. But they are grouped about by the mind. So mind is the central controller. And therefore, we enjoy a particular set of sense objects. Okay, Rajalakshmi, please read.
Okay. In other words, if the living entity adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs, in his next life he gets a cat or dog body and enjoys. Consciousness is originally pure like water, but if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit soul is pure, but consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. When therefore one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is in his pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he gets a corresponding body. He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat, dog, hawk, demigod, or one of many other forms. For there are 8,000,004 lakh species.
Yeah. So if the consciousness is adulterated means like if you add water to the milk, that is called adulteration. In a similar way, consciousness is spiritual. If we adulterate it with some material mentality, then in the next life we will get a corresponding body. So which means very quickly we should come to the spiritual conception. Otherwise you'll be in big time trouble. So we have to be super careful in whatever we do. Okay, next verse 15:10. Utkramantam
Utkramantam
sthitam vapi
Sitam Vapi
gunjanam
Bunjanam
vagunanvitam
Vagunanvitam
vimudha
Vimuda
nanupashyanti
Nanupashyanti
pashyanti
Pashyanti
jnanachakshusah.
Jnana Chakshusaha.
The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So basically, Krishna is saying you require a certain amount of intelligence because foolish cannot understand how soul is leaving one body, going to the other body under the conditions of these modes of material nature, because this transmigration from body to body happens under the influence of these three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So if the eyes are trained in knowledge, they can perceive all this very clearly. So this chapter almost feels like going back to chapter 2. Anybody recall in chapter 2 what happened? What did Krishna discuss in chapter 2?
It's about soul.
Sankhya philosophy.
Yeah. No, Sankhya philosophy a little bit, but mainly he was talking about soul. Almost from 2.12 to 2.48, I believe. He gives various qualities of the soul, right, in chapter 2. So now this is again feeling like that. Here is reiterating, Krishna is giving more knowledge about the activities of the soul in the body. He's saying the foolish cannot understand how living entity can quit, means how the soul can quit or leave the body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spells of modes of nature. Right? So, prakrite kriyamanani gunay karmani sarvasaha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. So, under the influence of ahankara, the soul thinks that I am doing everything. But what is doing everything? These three gunas, the modes of nature. So, to a certain extent, Krishna is giving the same knowledge in every chapter of Bhagavad Gita, but with a little bit more detail. Right? Here he is kind of tying that leaving of the soul from one body to other to the spell of modes of nature. So what is a spell? Anybody know what a spell is? This is the common meaning, spelled her name. But spell, according to
It's
magician.
a curse or something. Curse.
Yeah, not a curse. It is like you are temporarily under influence of something, right? You cannot think beyond that. So somebody puts a little magical spell on you, right? So spell has many meanings, like spell disaster, spell a word. But in this case, the spell has that specific meaning, like this one.
Like black magic and all that.
Yeah, a
Witchcraft.
state of enchantment caused by a magic spell. So the magician may cast a spell like that, right? So that is the meaning we are after. It's not like spelling. So we cannot understand what sort of body we enjoy under the spell of modes of nature. So it's almost like we are under this magical spell, right? So in the last verse, we talked about what? How these five senses are grouped around the mind. So we can make a diagram. Yesterday, for some of my students, I did these 3 diagrams, but now we'll continue to do more diagrams. So we can have sight, smell, taste,
Touch.
touch, and what's the other one? Hearing.
Auditory.
Yeah, auditory, correct. That's a good word you used, auditory. So we have these 5 senses. So who just joined? We have
Prabhu, it's Swati.
Yeah.
Ria. Okay, good. So Ria joined separately from her father, huh?
Yes, Prabhuji.
She doesn't want to join in the same laptop, Prabhu.
That's good. She's exhibiting some independence right now. It's okay. She can probably hear it better that way, right? So what does Krishna say? All of this is grouped about by the mind, right? So these senses are grouped about by the mind. So we can draw a little picture about, mind in the middle. So this grouping about is a very important term, because without mind, there is no individual existence of these senses. They will try to run here and there, but mind is what's actually controlling all of these different things. So Ria, can you make pictures like this based on Bhagavad Gita?
Prabhuji, I don't know how to.
Your father can teach you.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Now, Krishna is saying spell of the modes of material nature. So it's like a magician's spell, right? So let's now complete this picture with a spell. So actually, for every verse in Bhagavad Gita, you can draw a picture, right? I learned this from my daughter's visual arts class. So she was doing this visual arts class where anything can be converted into a picture. So let's see, what is the modes of material nature? Or let's say if there is something for spell, like a magical incantation, they don't have any images like that. So what are the 3 modes of material nature?
Goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Okay, nice. So we have, and who is captured by these 3 modes?
Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara.
No, they are not captured. That's
That's the
Adhishtam.
controller,
Yeah.
but capturer, capturer is...
No, not capturer. Who is captured was my question.
The living entity.
Excellent answer, Ria. Yeah, all of us. There's not a single person who is not captured by these 3 modes, right? The living entity is captured by these 3 modes. So snakes and scorpions are predominantly in ignorance. Even in animals, there is a classification. Cow is predominantly in goodness. The ferocious animals like lion, tiger, they are predominantly in the mode of passion. Right? So all living entities are captured by this. So there is a spell. It's like Jadu Tona, magic is going on. That is what Krishna says. I'm not saying this, Krishna is saying this. Under the spell of these modes of material nature. How do we know we are under the spell of these modes of material nature? Because we exhibit some qualities. What are those qualities? Anybody?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Very few exhibit that, by the way. Most of us exhibit worse qualities. What are those? For example, I get angry from time to time, right? And anger comes from this. Yeah. Sarvana was telling in the last class, right? What was that verse, Sarvana? Again, tell me. You were telling something about Rajoguna last time.
Prabhuji, did my dad say Krodat Bhavati Samoha?
Yeah, that one. Krodot bhavati sammoha, sammohat bhavati smriti brahmaha, smriti bhramsat, buddhi nasho, buddhi nasha pranashyati. But prior to that verse, there is one more verse. What is that? Dhyayato
Lust.
vinaya
Lust.
purushah, sangasteshu pajayate, sangat sanjayate kama, kama krodha bijayate.
Lust. Yeah.
Yeah, lust is the source. Remember, we were talking. We went into a lot of detail into that causes for anger and all that. Where did I put that? We went into a lot of detail, right? Ultimately, Krishna is not giving you any more new information. He has already given enough information in the first 14 chapters. From 15 chapter on, he's summarizing a lot of these things. 15, 16, 17, 18, he's telling you from a summary perspective. Right? So we talked about these three modes: ignorance, tamoguna; passion, rajoguna; goodness, satvaguna; and pure goodness, transcendental. Right? So
Vishnu Tattva.
yeah, and this is Shuddha, Vishuddha Sattva basically. Vishuddha Sattva means pure goodness. This is Sattva, not Vishuddha Sattva or Shuddha Sattva. So everything, right? Activities and mood will be in these three modes. Worship will be in these three modes. And why they worship is also in three modes. Charity is in these three modes. I was telling very clearly, right? So people in mode of passion, they'll give charity only if 100 people or 200 people are watching and there is a press coverage. Then they'll write a big check. Yes, I'll give you $100,000 for this cause, right? Even food is in these three modes. Like pure goodness is eating Krishna Prasadam. Goodness is fruits, vegetables, milk. Food that is too hot and too cold is considered passion. And meat, fish, eggs, mushrooms, onions, garlic, these are mode of ignorance. So that's why this should be given up first. If you want any devotional progress, you have to give this. These things are offered to Kali and Shudra Shaktis and so on, not for normal day-to-day living. Of course, now normal day-to-day living has become like that, and that's why you are seeing so many things. Like one article on New York Times written by not a devotee, but just like a general person. He said coronavirus came because of our mistreatment of animals. And he was perfect in that assessment. We mistreat animals, then weird things start happening. Right? So coming back. So passion comes from, or rather anger comes from mode of passion. Because you want to achieve something, if you cannot achieve it, you become angry. And usually once we are passionate, that over a period of time, you end up in ignorance. That's why ignorance should be given up and even passion should be given up. We all fall from time to time from passion to ignorance. It's a slippery slope. So basically, we can look for a picture of a slippery slope. Anybody tried to walk on a slippery slope? Nobody? I have walked and I've fallen down. This is called a slippery slope, right? So what is this slippery slope? You start with passion, you end up with ignorance. So passion is on left side and ignorance is on the right side. And this is what's happening right now. So too much passion in United States is causing people to fall into ignorance. And now there is no sense of right and wrong. today in Atlanta, somebody was sleeping, or like last night, somebody was sleeping in the drive-through of Wendy's, right, in a car for whatever reason, right? Maybe he doesn't have a home, his home is too far away. So police came and tried to wake him up and challenge him, this and that. So this person protested or whatever. Police shot him. He's dead now. And it so happens that the person who's dead is black. So all the more fuel to the protests happening in America. Right? As it is, they're protesting for George Floyd's death. And now one more black man dies in similar situation. So that's why we have to get out of passion. And this will happen. This will only get worse. The more passionate we are, the more we fall into ignorance. Best thing is to be in goodness, which means if you don't eat meat, fish, eggs, drink alcohol, watch TV and videos, you are in goodness. TV and videos actually will pull you into passion, except of course if you are watching devotional videos. But even there is a limit, because what happens is, one Prabhuji, ISKCON Prabhuji, was giving a class. And he said, today you have access to everything on your mobile phone. First thing is get rid of or stay away from the mobile phone for good part of the day. Because then you'll see some video and then some other video, your brain starts getting upset. And next thing you know, you get into passion, because there are a lot of passionate images shown there. Make more money, have more sex, this, that, right? Buy more cars or vodka or Johnny Walker or whiskey or whatever. And then that passion will fall into ignorance. So at least practicing devotees, we should be very careful with our mobile devices. This happened to me also. Like, the day I have more screen time, by end of the day, I end up with a headache and with very bad attitude. It is a proven fact. I have proved it on myself. There is enough research if you don't believe me. So we have to be very careful as practicing devotees. Other people, we cannot help them. Only God help them. That's it. Because most people are not even willing to listen to the message of scriptures, right? So what can we do? There's only so much. Maybe you can help 1 or 2 people in your lifetime, and that is good enough. You cannot save the whole world. So if you can save your husband or wife or kids from the slippery slope, that is a good achievement right there, right? Be a guru to your family. Don't try to be Jagat Guru. If you're like last night, I was telling one Mataji said, oh, when I'm coming to Bhagavad Gita class, my kids are not, I'm unable to attend to them. I said, first you learn this and then you attend to them in a proper way. And that is the verse that I covered yesterday. Let's learn this verse. Okay, repeat after me. Gururna sasyat.
Gururna sasyat.
Svajano na sasyat.
Svajano na sasyat.
Pita na sasyat.
Pita na sasyat.
Janani na sasyat.
Janani na sasyat.
Daivam na tatsyat.
Daivam na tatsyan.
Napatischa sasyan.
Napatisha sasyan.
Namo chayedyaham.
Namo chayedyaha.
Samupetya mrityum.
Samupeta mrityum.
So the translation is, one who cannot deliver his dependents from path of repeated birth and death. Punarapi maranam, punarapi jananam. Should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. So I'm teaching you Bhagavad Gita. I should not teach you unless I'm capable of taking you out of the cycle of birth and death. So I'm trying. I don't know if it will work or not, but I'm trying to take you out of the cycle of birth and death. Similarly, you should not get married if you cannot deliver your dependents from cycle of birth and death. So a husband should not get married unless he's capable of delivering his wife and kids from cycle of birth and death. A woman should not give birth to kids unless she is capable of delivering them from cycle of birth and death. Very, very difficult, huh? We all have kids. Now, according to scriptures, if we don't deliver our kids from cycle of birth and death, we have failed. Doesn't matter you went to Harvard University, you work in Goldman Sachs, make $500,000 a year. Doesn't matter. Nothing doing. It's still a failure. Very strong, huh? So everybody here want to deliver their dependents from cycle of birth and death? We should all
Yeah.
try. We should all try. I mean, the result is not in our hand, but we should try. Just like Sarvana is bringing his daughter Riya to these classes. Similarly, Rajalakshmi, you could bring your kids. They may not understand 100%, but you'll be surprised. They understand a good percentage, maybe 60, 70% they understand, even kids. Right? So, yeah, we have to deliver our dependents. That, otherwise, why have kids? What's the point, right? What are we going to do? Raise them without any knowledge of spirituality so that they just become an ordinary person. Just, what is the goal of life? To work in a company, make some money, buy some things on an online site, and go to sleep. That's what they'll think. That's what majority of America is thinking, right? They always glorify Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and all these rich guys, thinking that, hey, they made it, I didn't make it, which means they are better than me and they are great people. Actually, not. Jeff Bezos is divorced. Elon Musk is divorced. Now is going around with a second girl. They don't have proper family life. They don't have life at all, actually. So what we consider success in the modern world is because of lack of knowledge of scripture. Success means you have taken birth. Not only you are liberating yourself, but your dependents. Like wife should deliver the husband, husband should deliver the wife. Both of them should deliver the kids. And both of them should deliver their parents also. Like, the husband has parents and the wife also has parents. So you have to deliver your previous generation and you have to deliver your next generation. Minimum. Otherwise, what is success means? Any comments? Any wild protests? I don't agree with you. Anything like that? Okay, Sarvana, please read.
Prabhu, it is very hard, right, Prabhu? What if they are not agreeing to what we say, or they are not, okay with okay to follow in this path, Prabhu?
Yeah, so
you
should instruct them with love, right? You should practice it first so that you become a role model, and then you should give them so much love that they can never say no to you.
Okay.
Wash their socks, make their bed, every little thing, so that they think that I cannot live without my mother, or whoever the case might be. I cannot live without my wife. The husband should think like that. So when you do so much, then you slowly introduce them, right?
Okay.
This is like slow, slow acting, portion or a magical spell. You could think of it that way. You should slowly approach them gently with love. They will listen. Right? Most of Srila Prabhupada's disciples listened because they felt that the Swamiji was so genuine. He was so loving and caring. So Prabhupada would cook for them and feed them, like he would serve them. And after eating, they would not even pick up the plate. They would go away. And then Prabhupada would pick up all the plates and wash them. Right? Later on, once they have some knowledge, they said, oh, he is my guru. How can I make him wash my plate? I should wash his plate. Right? So that way, he conquered their hearts. And he's continuing to conquer everybody's hearts, right? So why do you think we are having this Bhagavad Gita class? That's his influence on us. I would say he's the most influential person in the world, right? In the 20th century. and the 21st century. Because so many people, even though they don't know who Prabhupada is, they are speaking about Prabhupada, right? So gain that influence. And people will listen to you. People are actually listening, right? Like now we are all having this class. We are all listening to Prabhupada. He's not bribing us. He's not even there on the planet right now. But are we not listening to him? We are. So that's how it is. If you give something of value to someone, gradually they'll turn around. Initially they'll fight. They will yell at you.
Okay, Prabhu.
Over a period of time, it will change. But it will take an entire lifetime, perhaps. So don't expect instant results.
Okay, Prabhu.
Okay. Okay, Sarvana, please read.
Sure, Prabhu. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. The word jnana chakshusha is very significant. Without knowledge, one cannot understand how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what form of body he is going to take in the next life, nor even why he is living in a particular type of body. This requires a great amount of knowledge understood from Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures heard from a bona fide spiritual master. One who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate. Every living entity is quitting his body under certain circumstances. He is living under certain circumstances, and he is enjoying under certain circumstances under the spell of material nature. As a result, he is suffering different kinds of happiness and distress under the illusion of sense enjoyment. Persons who are everlastingly fooled by lust and desire lose all power to understand their change of body and their stay in a particular body. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit is different from the body and is changing its body and enjoying in different ways. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. Therefore, those who are highly developed in Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to the people in general, for their conditional life is very much troublesome. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world. Thank you,
So
Prabhu.
it's a 3-step process. They should come out of it. What are they coming out of? This conditioned life. So brain is conditioned to act in a particular way, right? Even the school conditions us to study in a particular way and think in a particular way. Like the modern Western education conditions us to think in a certain way. You go through the logical analysis process. You go through step-by-step process to solve a problem, all to do more sense gratification or indriya tripti, right? And the Eastern way, the traditional sages, they were also conditioning people in a particular way, right? Oh, to think that this material world is temporary, to think that the life is temporary, there is a higher life, and I need to go there, to my eternal Father. So they were conditioning people in a particular way. We are all conditioned in some way or the other. So the point is, we should come out of that. That is the first step. They should come out of it, as Prabhupada says. Be Krishna conscious, that is second step. And liberate themselves, that is third step. To do what? Not to stay here, to transfer to the spiritual world. So it's a 4-step process he is giving. And he's saying, therefore, those who are highly developed, they try their best to give this knowledge to people in general. So we should also try to do this. We should give this knowledge to people in general, because people in general have no idea, zero idea. What is the goal of life? I don't know. Most people will say, or they'll say, yeah, I want to watch the Olympics, or they'll give something which is very difficult for them to achieve. But other people have achieved it very easily. Like I watched the Olympics game in Birmingham, Alabama, soccer game, long time ago, 1996 Olympics, when it happened in Atlanta. So one soccer game was in Birmingham, Alabama. But for a lot of people, to watch an Olympics game is like unbelievable. It's like a highest, pinnacle of success like that. For some people, to play the piano is very great. And for other people, they'll just casually come, they'll play the piano and get out. Right? So people's goals are very different. They have no idea what the real goal is. So people who are know this knowledge should give it to others, um, because they see suffering, right? So we should become compassionate. What is compassionate? That is when you, and then there is also empathy. What is empathy? You put yourself in the other person's shoes and think how they are, thinking. And then compassion is you actually give them resolution to their suffering condition. Everybody is suffering in this world, no doubt about it. Whether it's in Australia, India, America, Europe, everybody's suffering. So you may think, oh, Europe is so great. I was talking to my friend, my office colleague in France when I was working in France. And he was telling that marriage is practically dead in France. He was living with his girlfriend, and many of our colleagues, they were all living with girlfriends or boyfriends. Marriage is practically coming to an end. And they're not very happy about it, right? Because they see that in traditional countries like Sri Lanka or India or Bangladesh, most people get married and they seem to, have a very stable life. Whereas French have lost the concept of stability in life, right? So everybody's suffering actually. In France, I've seen people are suffering. Germany, they are suffering. Except for Australia, I've traveled to most countries, and everywhere people are suffering. So and in Thailand, there is a word for that. It's called sakut. Sakut is like, anybody see Lion King movie? Nobody has seen Lion King movie?
Prabhuji, I watched the trailer, but I didn't see the movie.
Yeah. So what is the key word that is used when they go singing in the forest? They follow in a line, right? Hakuna Matata means no worries. So they are artificially forgetting their worries, no worries, right? So in Thailand, there is a word for that, sakut. Sakut means forget everything. Just imagine everything is happy, like that. So everybody's suffering. Thailand people are suffering. Greek people are suffering. Americans are suffering. Like one of the ISKCON sannyasis, he said, he went to New York City and he saw a board there. I don't know if it was Hawaii or Sydney. He said, fly to Sydney, you'll be happy. And then he went to Sydney after some time on preaching. And then in the Sydney airport, he saw a board. Fly to New York, you'll be happy. So people in New York are thinking, if you go to Sydney, you'll be happy. And people in Sydney are thinking, if you fly to New York, you'll be happy. But both are not happy. See the point? So nobody is happy actually. So we have to give this knowledge of Krishna consciousness to people so that they can become happy. When they are happy, you'll become even more happy. So happiness is a contagious disease. If everybody around you is happy, right, you'll become even more happy. And seeing you being more happy, they'll become even more happy. In this way, it keeps on growing. And misery is the opposite. If you see somebody miserable, you'll become miserable. Seeing that you are miserable, they become even more miserable. So misery loves company, as they say. Everybody will become gloomy. So we have to make people happy because they are suffering. They don't know the solution to it. They are thinking, okay, maybe if I drink some alcohol, I'll forget everything. So they go drink alcohol and maybe temporarily for 2 hours they forget. After that, again, same story. It's still there. So let's improve our Krishna consciousness and help other people. That should be our goal of life. But for that, you have to be happy, which means you have to be fully Krishna conscious. You cannot fake it. People will make it out. whether you are really happy or are you, like sometimes you see on TV, right? People will come and they seem so happy wearing a nice expensive suit and they're chit-chatting, and then you hear like later, 2 years later, that the TV host committed suicide. If they were so happy, why did they commit suicide? Which means they were pretty miserable. They were just doing a show because that is their profession, to do a show. 1511. Yatanto
Yatanto
yoginas
yoginas
chainam
chainam
pashyanti
pashyanti
atmani
atmani
avasthitam
avasthitam
yatanto
yatanto
api
api
akritatmano
akritatmano
nayanam
ainam
pashyanti
pashyanti
achetasah.
achetasah.
So, Swati Mataji, please read the translation and purport.
Okay. Translation: the endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all these clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhu, can you just scroll? Okay. There are many transcendentalists on the path of spiritual self-realization, but one who is not situated in self-realization cannot see how things are changing in the body of the living entity. The word yoginaha is significant in this connection. In the present day, there are many so-called yogis and there are many so-called association of yogis, but they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. They are simply addicted to some sort of gymnastic exercise and are satisfied if the body is well built and healthy. They have no other information. They are called yatantopi akritatmanaha. Even though they are endeavoring in a so-called yoga system, they are not self-realized. Such people cannot understand the process of the transmigration of the soul. Only those who are actually in the yoga system and have realized the self, the world, and the Supreme Lord, in other words, the Bhakti yogis, those engaged in pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness, can understand how things are taking place.
So essentially, Srila Prabhupada is saying is only bhakti yogis who are engaged in devotional seva, which means service to Krishna, whether it's in the temple or outside the temple, but always thinking of Krishna, singing his glories, chanting. Such a person will understand how things they are. So this is a very nice way Krishna says here. So somebody who is in self-realization can see this clearly. So before we can do God realization, we have to do self-realization. But those whose minds are not developed, which is 99% of the world's population, and who are not situated in self-realization, cannot see what is taking place. So like, what is the common explanation of what's happening in America about the police and the riots and everything? What is the general explanation for that? Shiva, can you say what is the general thought right now in the world, in America especially?
Discrimination?
I'm not much following on that, Prabhu. I'm not seeing the news on that front.
No problem. So generally, let me answer that question. So generally people say, oh, because of racist attitude, police are killing the blacks, this and that, right? But what is the Bhagavad Gita answer for what's happening right now?
It's Maya and unrest, ignorance.
Yeah, Maya is a very big word. but primarily ignorance. Ignorance of what?
ig- ignorance of spirituality, or
That is a very broad thing, spirituality. Everything we talk is spirituality. What is ignorance of what?
Ignorance of the self, Prabhu, because everyone is thinking.
Exactly. Ignorance of the self. The soul is neither black or white or yellow or blue or brown, right? So they are thinking all the white guys are troubling me all the time, or the white guys are thinking these individuals are involving in crime. They brand everybody as a criminal, or they are very afraid of going close to this other community. Why? Because of bodily identification. That is the main reason. Identifying themselves with the body. Everything else comes later, right? So if because ISKCON is probably the only society in the world where black devotees, white devotees, Indian devotees, Chinese devotees, and whatever the other races are out there, they will all sit in the same line and eat prasadam. Nowhere else you can see that. Why? Because people have come to the conclusion that we are not the body, we are the soul. So that bodily identification is the biggest problem. And there is a second problem also. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of dash. Okay, I'll give you a hint. Ignorance of law of dash.
Law of karma.
Karma, yeah. So if you don't believe in karma, you think that you are doing everything and there is no other higher purpose, or there is no other higher knowledge or person that you turn to. I'm everything. I do X, I get Y, so therefore I'll continue to do X. So what does law of karma say? Just because you do X doesn't mean that you should get Y. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
There's so many other factors, right? What you did in the last life, who is that person, what is his situation in this lifetime. There's so many factors. So just because you want X doesn't mean you'll get X. Right? So that it all comes down to
so here you're talking about X as a person, Prabhuji, here.
no, X as an activity.
Okay.
If you do X, you get Y, means Y is an activity. So that's not guaranteed. Second thing, if you want X, you'll get X. If you want a product, so like suppose you want a phone, but does it mean that you'll get a phone? May or may not be. It's not entitlement. Entitlement means if I want something, I should get it. No, you won't get it. I mean, you may, depending upon so many other factors. So because of this ignorance, they think that, oh, this community is exploiting me, therefore I should fight back. All bodily identification. And even our leaders are all doing bodily identification. They don't know any better because nobody taught them. Like I remember some Hare Krishna devotees gave Bill Clinton a book on Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if anybody gave a book to President Trump on Bhagavad Gita. I don't know. And even if it was given, what is the likelihood that they may read it, right? It requires some effort. It requires some effort to understand how things are. That's what Krishna is saying here, right? They cannot see what is taking place. The average person in this world cannot see what is taking place, period. They simply cannot see. Therefore, they will again come back to the bodily identification and fight on the platform of what they understand. Right? Okay, if I only work harder, I'll make more money. It's not guaranteed. If it's not there in your karma, no matter how hard you try, you will not get it. Like there is Urdu, there is a saying, दर बदर सर पटकने से क्या होता है, वही होता है मंजूरे खुदा होता है. Right? Just because you bang your head doesn't mean you'll get what you want. what you'll get is in hand of Khuda or Krishna, basically, God. So they cannot see. Why? Because they don't have the sufficient knowledge. Okay, Kritika Mataji, read.
Yes, Prabhu, you want me to read the purport, Prabhu?
Yes, yes, please.
Prabhu, you need to go to next verse, right? Purport is done, right?
Is the purport done? Oh yeah, that's true. We'll go to the next one. Well, I'll do the Sanskrit and then you can do the translation. Okay. So yad aditya gatam tejo
Yad aditya
Yadaditya tejo
jagad bhashyate akhilam
jagat bhashyate akilam
yak chandramsi yak chagnav
yat chandramasi yat chavno
tattejo vidimamakam.
tattejo vidimamakam.
Okay, Kritika Mataji.
Sure. Thank you, Prabhu. Translation. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. Do you want me to do the purport, Prabhu?
Yes, please.
Purport. The unintelligent cannot understand how things are taking place, but one can begin to be established in knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here. Everyone sees the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of electricity of fire are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. The living entities are essentially the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and he is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to him, come back to Godhead, back to home. From this verse, we can understand that the sun is illuminating the whole solar system. There are different universes and solar systems, and there are different suns, moons, and planets also. But in each universe, there is only one sun. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 10:21, the moon is one of the stars. Nakshatranam aham shashi. Sunlight is due to the spiritual effulgence in the spiritual sky of the Supreme Lord. With the rise of the sun, the activities of human beings are set up. They set fire to prepare their foodstuff. They set fire to start the factories, etc. So many things are done with the help of fire. Therefore, sunrise, fire, and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities. Without their help, no living entity can live. So if one can understand that the light and splendor of the sun, moon, and fire are emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then once Krishna consciousness will begin. By the moonshine, all the vegetables are nourished. The moonshine is so pleasing that people can easily understand that they are living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Without his mercy, there cannot be sun. Without his mercy, there cannot be moon. And without his mercy, there cannot be fire. And without the help of sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. Haribol?
Thank you. Yeah, so this is like a basic astronomical view of the world, and saying that without the sun we cannot do anything, without the moon we cannot grow vegetables, and without these other planets, certain planetary pulls and pushes are not possible. So this is one way to teach somebody the basics of Krishna consciousness. Did we create the sun? No. Did we create the moon? No. But we are fully dependent on them. And this is one area where there is a lot of similarity with the Bible, where their creation where their depiction of universe is very similar to the Vedic depiction from a sun, moon, earth perspective. But beyond that, the Vedic system has a lot more knowledge than any other system, right? So you have to understand that. So Krishna is giving very elementary topics here, sun, moon. But once we come to Srimad Bhagavatam, a lot more about the Vedic cosmology. The video that I showed you three weeks ago, about the Bhumandala, below that the 6 subterranean planets, and above 7 heavenly planets, and everything else that we discussed. So that is not even known to the modern scientist, right? Modern scientist is still trying to send basic rockets, like the day Tesla or SpaceX, Elon Musk's rockets went out, people were saying this is a great achievement in science, this, that. But that's like basic achievement. It's not great achievement. Great achievement, a long way to go, because they have not even scraped the surface of the astronomy, just a little bit, right? So Krishna is saying here, again, just like chapter 10, the various vibhutis or qualities that he has, he's talking about the sun's ability to dissipate darkness is coming from him, and moon and fire are also coming from him. So therefore, it is not necessary to worship any other devata. If these powers are coming from him, there is no necessity to worship the Surya Devata or the Chandra Devata or Agni Devata. Although they are devatas, but the power is coming from Krishna, so might as well directly worship Krishna. It's just like if you are an owner of a company, you have 3 offices: New York, Sydney, and London, and you employ 3 general managers to run the show. Are the general managers the owner of these offices? No, right? You are still the owner. You have employed them so that they can run the show locally and they can generate business for you. Same thing, when Krishna gives these various positions to the devatas to run the show on sun, Surya Devata, and moon, Chandra Devata, and fire, Agni Devata, he still retains control. Those are just administrators. So they are administering the local offices. But Krishna is still in charge. If he wants, he can fire those local representatives and appoint somebody else. And if you are qualified, you can also apply. You can say, okay, I'll be the next Agni because I have done for 1,000 lifetimes, I've done service for you, my Lord. Therefore, please make me that. And he'll say, okay, you are qualified enough. Okay, I'll make you that. Or he may say, no, I have better plans for you. Like that.
So Agni is a demigod actually.
Agni is a demigod. Surya is a demigod. So right now, that's why I keep saying you don't need to worship any devatas, because all these, when you worship Krishna, everything else is taken care of. You don't need to worry about intermediaries. We are not saying you'll insult them. No, you have to respect them fully because they are representatives, right? Just like Donald Trump appoints a forestry chief, right, to take care of all the forestry initiatives across United States. You cannot say, I will only follow Trump, I will not listen to you. No. Because he has been appointed by the president, he has full powers. If you misbehave, you can call the Forest Security Service or whatever and get you arrested. So, same way, you should never insult any demigods, but understand that they are dependent on the Supreme Lord, and therefore Supreme Lord is to be worshipped. You don't need to worship any man or any demigod. It is said in one place, actually. We'll come to that sub point. There's no need to worship any man or any demigod, because ultimately all worship is for Krishna or Vishnu himself. So,
Prabhu,
yes, ma'am. Yes.
I want to add one point. In Valmiki Ramayana, we Agastya comes and gives the knowledge of Aditya Hridaya to Lord Rama, but it's widely misattributed to the worship of Surya. But in the Sri Sampradaya translation that I have, over there, Ramanujacharya's descendants, they have very clearly explained that Aditya is Vivaswan. Yes, that is correct. But we are talking about the one who resides in the heart of Aditya. That is the meaning of Aditya Hridayam.
Yeah.
So Aditya Hridayam, you are actually, when you read the whole thing, it actually comes to Surya Narayana. It's not Surya. So, so even in Valmiki Ramayana, people have very happily misattributed to the fact that Lord Rama himself worships Surya, so we have to worship Surya as well. That is not correct. It is that is not at all what the acharyas have said. It's Aditya Hridayam is a worship of Surya Narayana, the one who resides in the heart of Surya.
Yes.
And of course, he talks about how he lights up the world and things like that. So over there, we see the Surya component in it. But the Hridayam, it should be very clearly understandable that the one who resides in the heart of Aditya, he's the one who gets the, he is the ultimate beneficiary of this mantra. And that is Lord Rama himself, or Narayana, Surya Narayana in this case.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add that.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Yeah, most people, they look at the immediate cause, right? There, for anything, there is a primal cause, the original cause, and there is an immediate cause. Suppose I roll a marble from the living room to the second room, right? So I am the primal cause to roll the marble. But then the kid who is in the other room thinks marble is automatically coming from the other room into my room. So most people get bewildered and confused by the secondary cause. They only see that something's happening, but who is driving it? They miss the point. So that's why we have to read scriptures, because just like the Aditya Hridayam, so it's not Aditya, but whoever is there in the Hridayam of Aditya, or whoever is there for that matter in Hridayam of all of us, because Supreme Lord is sitting in our heart. Upadrishta Anumantacha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwaram. So yeah, excellent point. Thank you for that. Next one, 1513. Gamavisya cha bhutani.
Gam avischa cha bhutani.
Dharayami ahamajasa ojasa.
Dharayami aham ojasa.
Ushnami chaushadihi sarvaha.
Pushnami chausati sarvaha.
Somo bhutva rasatmakaham.
Somo bhutva rasatmakaha.
So this is very important word, ojas. What is ojas? Anybody heard?
Radiance.
Radiance, exactly. Even some human beings have this radiance depending upon their spiritual practices. So what is Krishna saying? Clearly, it is not like some energy. He is saying, I enter into each planet, and by my energy, they stay in orbit. Right? This is something that scientists till day haven't been able to prove. They say, oh, interplanetary attraction, because of that other planet, this planet is floating. And how is that other planet floating? Because of some other planet. So there is that equation, right? The ability to float is half the square of the mass of each planet, or something like that. Some weird logic they give. But Krishna is very clearly saying, I enter into each planet, and by my energy, they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life. The juice is the ojas to all the vegetables. So 2 verses ago, he said vegetables, moon, no, last verse, and this verse also. So which means vegetables are not grown by sunlight, but they are grown by moonlight. Very interesting, huh? Because modern science tells you sun is the primary cause for all the vegetation to grow and vegetables to come through. But here we are learning it is not the sun really, it is the moon. Sun may be the cause of the leaves to grow on trees, but for vegetables, it is the moon. So these secrets are not available to modern man. Okay, who hasn't spoken so far? Mike, you want to read this?
Hopefully don't lose you because I have a bad connection here.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, Nalini, can you read, please?
Should I read?
Okay, Prabhuji. It is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. That is discussed in the Brahma Samhita. It is said there that one plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So, due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on the water, but when the living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, the body sinks. Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats just like straw and other things, but as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space, and this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His energy is sustaining each planet just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling, but if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets, which are floating in the air, are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By his strength and energy, all moving and non moving things stay in their place. It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in air and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word Rasatmakaha is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon.
Yeah, thank you. So the same points that we discussed a little earlier around vegetables and the moon. There is one important point here. If it were not for the Supreme Lord, all the planets would scatter like dust in the air and perish. Because very few proportion of the percentage of the volume of the universe is occupied by these planets. 99 plus percent is just space. So if the Lord's energy wasn't there, these planets would just scatter here and there. Just like if you have some petals of flowers or pollen during spring season, as wind comes, the pollen just gets scattered here and there. There's nothing to hold them. Similarly, the planets would scatter. But because of the energy of the Lord, it is waiting. So that's why when I went to Croatia along with my Guru Maharaj, there was one other sannyasi, I forget his name now. He gave a lecture. He said there is nothing called gravity. There's nothing called gravity. It's just the energy of the Lord. Right? And when the energy of the Lord says that certain person could float, just like Narada Muni, he can just float because he is not impacted by this energy of the Lord, or at least the Lord facilitates him to go from planet to planet just like that without an airplane. So this whole concept of gravity came because modern scientists had to somehow say that these planets are all, because of gravity, suspended in thin air. They're not even air actually, it is just space. So without the energy of the Lord, the planets would simply fall down. They're very heavy, right? So they would just fall down. But now they are not falling down. So there is some kind of energy, just like you see the race cars, the toy race cars people play. They follow a particular track. How? Because the track has been designed by somebody. In the same way, the Supreme Lord has designed this track where the planets would move exactly in the orbit. Yeah, so last time, or maybe 3 times ago, we saw that video, Vedic Planetarium, where all these different planets are going in their precise orbit. They're not deviating left or right. So it's all interesting. Krishna is giving a lot of knowledge. All right. So how does Krishna go? He doesn't directly enter. He sends one plenary portion, means a fractional portion of Supreme Personality enters into the planet. Just a small ray of energy of his, a portion goes in there and it gives. Similarly, there is a small plenary portion of the Supreme Lord that has entered you and me, the living entity, as Paramatma, and even into the atom, every atom, as Shiro Dakasai Vishnu. Right? So Paramatma enters planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So we can copy this into our notes. The important piece of information that we need to jot down. So the Lord's plenary portion enters pretty much everything. Into the planets, into the universe, the living entity, and even in the atom. Let's do next verse. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva
Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva
Praninam Dehamashritah
Praninam Dehamashritah
Prana Samayuktah
Pranapana Samayuktah
Pachami Annam Chaturvidham.
Pachami Annam Chaturvidham.
So he has now gone from a macro scale to micro scale. Macro scale from a planetary dimensions to something as simple as digestion. Chaturvidham, there are 4 kinds of foods. So all 4 kinds of foods are digested by the Lord's potency. Man, Vaishwanaro Bhutva, right? His plenary portion has the digesting fire. In the stomach, digests our food. Prana Apana. Prana means outgoing air, and Apana is downgoing air. Means prana is breathe out and Apana is breathe in. And these 2 things are kept in balance by the Supreme Lord. So did it ever occur why we are able to only breathe the exact required quantity of air into our body? You may say, oh, size of the lung and this and that. But the real answer is, by the Lord's potency, a required amount of outgoing air is there and a required amount of incoming air is kept in balance. Samayukta. Very interesting. So now from astronomy, Krishna is now talking something as simple as breathing and food. But for both of them, he is responsible. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva. In all the Bhutvas, all the living entities, he is the fire of digestion. Okay, Ria, if you're still there, can you read this? Or is Ria sleeping?
I think she is not there, Prabhuji.
What's that?
She's not there, Prabhuji. Online. She's not online.
Okay. So Shiva, please read this.
Sure, Prabhu. According to Ayurvedic Shastra, we understand that there is a fire in the stomach which digests all food sent there. When the fire is not blazing, there is no hunger. And when the fire is in order, we become hungry. Sometimes, when the fire is not going nicely, treatment is required. In any case, this fire this fire is representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedic mantras, Brahad Aranyaka Upanishad, also confirm that the Supreme Lord or Brahman is situated in the form of fire within the stomach and is digesting all kinds of foodstuff. Aham Agnir Vaishnavanaro Yayam Antaparse Yanedam Annam Pachyate. Therefore, since he is helping the digestion of all kinds of foodstuff, the living entity is not independent in the eating process. Unless the Supreme Lord helps him digesting, there is no possibility of eating. He thus produces and digests foodstuff, and by his grace we are enjoying life. In the Vedanta Sutra, this is also confirmed. Sabdadhiyo na pratischa cha. The Lord is situated within sound and within the body, within the air, and even within the stomach as a digestive force. There are four kinds of foodstuff. Some are drunk, some are chewed, some are licked up, and some are sucked. And he is the digestive force for all of them.
Yeah. So basically, food is classified into four aspects. That's why when we sing the Mangalarati, Chaturvida Sri Bhagavad Prasado Swadhanna Triptan Haribhakta Sangan Kritvaiva Triptim Bhajatat Sadaiva Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. We glorify the Guru who is feeding Krishna these four kinds of food. Chaturvida Hi Bhagavad Prasadam. So four types of some which are chewed, some which are drunk, some which are licked, and some which are sucked. Like for example, you don't lick a mango, you suck from a mango. And then you don't drink rice. What do? You chew it, right? So in this way, these are the four types of foodstuffs. And Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva. So this Vaishvanara or the fire of digestion is Krishna himself. So we are actually not independent. That's the point. He's continuing, he's controlling the prana apana. Remember in the last verse? Prana apana, like in breathing and out breathing. He's controlling the fire of your digestion. So there are very few things that you are doing by yourself. He's doing a lot of the activity in your body. Pranapana samayuktaha means prana apana, breathe in and breathe out. And then pachami, digestion, he's doing the digestion too. So practically he is running our show. He's running our body. 15:15. This is a very, very famous verse. Everybody should memorize this verse. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivisto
Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto
mattaha smritirjnanam apohanam cha
matta smritirjnanam apohanam cha
vedescha sarvairahameva vedyo
Vedaisha sarvairahameva vedyo
vedanta krit veda vedeva chaham.
Vedanta kridveda videva chaham.
So when you have long shlokas like this, then you go into the singing mode, right? When you have short slokas, like the last words, we used a different meter. It's called a meter. For example, in this one, you don't sing like that because there is not enough words there. So you go into more the monotone. Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva, like that, right? Prani Nam Deham Ashritaha, Prana Prana Samayuktaha, Pachanti Yannam Chaturvidam. So you should know the difference between that and this meter. Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivisto. because this is more. If you just had 3, then you would say Sarvasya Chaham Hridi. But here there is longer, right? So you go into the singing mode. There is a particular name for that meter, and I don't remember what it is. Okay.
Anustub, I think, Prabhu.
Huh?
The previous Anustub, the previous one was Anustub.
Okay. And
It's the Chanda. This one, I don't know. Anustub is in terms of 8 or something like that. So the Vishnu Sahasranam is also Anustub Chandaha. That is the most common meter, whereas this one is it's a different one. I don't know the name of this meter.
Yeah, that's good. At least we know that the other one is called Anustub, because yes,
Yeah.
that is the way we recite Vishnu Sahasranam also.
Yeah, and even in Vishnu Sahasranam is mentioned that Anustub Chandaha is also mentioned in there.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, so basically when you recite things in a particular meter, your neurons in the brain are getting aligned in a particular way. So it's a very, very interesting science on how, because everybody agrees that there are billions of neurons in the brain, but how they're getting aligned, nobody knows. So people who recite Vedic hymns like the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam has a lot more of these long verses, right? You must have seen that. Anybody know a very long verse? What is the Brahma Samhita meter? Anybody remember that?
Yes, but it will be like something like Suprabhatam.
That's also kind. That is also kind of like this meter, Prabhu. It's not the Anustub.
Yeah, it is not Anustub.
Yeah.
Also kind of like this, right? For example, Ishvara Parama Krishna, but then you have more breaks in that kind of meter compared to this meter, right? This
Right.
Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivisto, this lends itself for more singing, and that lends itself more for mantric recitation. And then there are some very long verses in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a totally different meter. So here you have 4 words, right? Broadly speaking, it's actually more than 4, but broadly speaking 4. There you have 6 or 8. So those have a very, very, very different meter. So it's very interesting to know, because each one of these mantras, if you recite the same mantra for more than 40 days, your brain will align in a particular way. That is what the Vedic scientists tell us. So you can try that.
Prabhu, in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.2, that doesn't suit this meter at all. Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. That's a completely different meter altogether.
Here you are talking about in excess of 12 different syllables. The whole thing that you said is one sentence. It's a pretty long sentence. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very interesting language, and and then also, have you seen this Narsimha Stotram? Anybody remember that? Narsimha Stotram is in a different meter again altogether. It's not Anustub, it's not this long singing meter. What is Narsimha Stotram, Sri Lakshmi? Can you remind me?
Stotram or Kavacham, Prabhu?
Yeah, Narsimha Kavacham. Narsimha Kavacham Vakshe Praladeno Ditam Pura Sarva Rakshakara. Yeah, so that's how it goes. It's a very different meter. So that's a very different meter altogether. And then you have from North India, which my wife sings a lot. Shuddha Brahma Paratpara Ram Kalatmaka Paratpara Ram Sheshatalpa Sukhanidrita Ram Ityadi. Right? So that's a very, very different meter. So now you know why people who know Sanskrit are not foolish. They are very intelligent. Because when you put all this, how your bodily atoms align is very interesting, right? People who recite mantras are not ordinary people. Actually, once we were walking with my Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj in Microsoft campus. And then Mahatattva Prabhu, who is now Bhakti Anand Tirtha Maharaj, he asked a question. So did the Vedic sages do these things? And Maharaj answered the question. Anybody who learns Sanskrit will not do such silly things. So people who know Sanskrit think of higher things like how to get liberated and things like that, right? So a language also has a basis on how a individual thinks. So very subtle science. So if you learn Sanskritam at depth, you will slowly lose interest in this material type of things. And if you learn English a lot, then you will gain more interest in material things. Of course, English can also be used to teach Sanskrit. So from that perspective, it's okay. So that was a little segue. I tell you why this is very important. Because this establishes the presence of Krishna in everyone's heart. I am seated in everyone's heart. And from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Sometimes I can remember things that I did in my first grade back in India when I was in Chennai and Bangalore. And I cannot remember something that I did yesterday. Right? Why? Because of the presence of Paramatma. He will make you think, remember certain things, and he'll make you forget certain things. So, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivisto Matta Smritir. Mattaha. Smritir. Smritir means remembrance. Jnanam, knowledge. Apohanam, forgetfulness. Everything will be coming from Krishna himself. Vedescha Sarvair Ahameva Vedya. Means for all the Vedas, I am to be known. What is the purpose of reading Vedas? It's not like I'll go to Ayurveda, page number 486. I'm having pain on my left ankle, therefore I need to find some medicine. No, I mean that is as I said, the secondary cause. The primary cause of Vedas is to know Krishna. Right? By the way, anybody know this? What is the biggest disease in Ayurveda? According to Ayurveda, what is the biggest disease?
Forgetfulness.
No. That is a small disease. What is the biggest disease?
Digestion.
Huh? Digestion, yeah. So from a medical doctor perspective, the biggest problem in Ayurveda is digestion in your stomach. If your digestion is correct, the whole body is toned up well. And if the digestion is messed up, then you have no peace. You'll start getting bad dreams. You'll get very cranky. So, yeah, but that is a big problem. What is the biggest problem according to Ayurveda? You know what it is? You'll be surprised to find this out. One of the Ayurvedic doctors who gave a seminar here was telling us, this was way back in 2004 or something like that, in our temple. He's a devotee too. He's a Hare Krishna devotee. He said, the biggest problem of Ayurveda is the body. If you don't have a body, will you have any of these problems? The material body is the biggest problem. So, the real purpose of Ayurveda is to get out of this material body and get back into our spiritual body. Then you won't have any problem. Right? Not artificially. Like sometimes people see all this and say, body is so bad, so let me end this body, commit suicide or some nonsense like that. No. Naturally, by practice of spirituality, go back to your Swarupa Siddhi. Swarupa Siddhi means each one of us has a specific type of body in the spiritual world. That is your Swarupa. Swa means original, Rupa means form. Right now we are in Kritrima Rupa, means artificial form. So we have to go back to our Swarupa Siddhi. So within that Swarupa, then you will attain Siddhi, means your original, eternal position of service to Krishna. right? So each one of us, I cannot do what Kritika can do. Kritika cannot do what Sarvana can do. Sarvana cannot do what Mike can do. In this way, continue the process across the classroom. Each one of us has a unique position in the spiritual world. In the entire universe, nobody can replicate that unique position. That is called Swarupa Siddhi. And then he says, indeed, I am compiler of Vedanta and I am the knower of Vedas. So in which avatara does Vedas get produced by Krishna? Kritika Mataji will know the answer to this.
The Vedas are produced by the breath of the Lord. He always has them. But it's during the 28th Dwapara Yuga, is during the Dwapara Yuga that Veda Vyasa, one of the plenary expansions of Lord Krishna, will compile the Vedas and split them up.
Yeah, that is correct. Both of those answers are correct. But have you heard of Hayagriva?
Yes, Hayagriva, yes, Prabhu. Even in Jnanandamayam Devam Nirmala Spadika Krutam Adaram Sarva Vidyanama Hayagriva Upasmahe. So that is the so he's a source of all knowledge.
Yes. Because Lord has infinite number of avatars. So to give the Vedas, of course, it's the breath of the Lord, but to give the Vedas, it comes through Hayagriva, like that. And of course, Vedavyas writes them down. Because why did he write them down? This is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Why did he write them down?
Because people in Kali Yuga have very little memory. We are lazy. We are
excellent.
dull.
Yeah. Tatascha anudinam dharma satyam saucham kshamadaya kalena balina rajan ningshatu ayu balam smritihi. Ningshatu means reduction of ayu, lifetime, balam, strength, smritihi, memory. Tatascha anudinam dharma. Dharma comes down. Satyam saucham kshamadaya. Truthfulness, austerity. We discussed this about a month ago, and I have notes to prove it. So it is here. Yeah. Satyam, Saucham, Kshama, Dhaya. Kalena Balina Rajan. Due to progress of Kali, these four things will get destroyed. And to destroy truth, gambling comes into place. To destroy cleanliness, illicit sex comes into place. To destroy tolerance, eating birds, fish, eggs, animals comes into place. And to destroy mercy, all these intoxications, alcohol, marijuana, etc. come into place. So the Lord says, I am the compiler of Vedanta. Yes. And I am the knower of the Vedas. Of course, they came from him. So he already knows them. Intrinsically, he knows them. Okay, Kritika Mataji, read the purport.
Yes, Prabhu. The Supreme Lord is situated as Paramatma in everyone's heart, and it is from him activities are initiated. The living entity forgets everything of his past life, but he has to act according to the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is witness to all his work. Therefore, he begins his work according to his past deeds. Required knowledge is supplied to him, and remembrance is given to him, and he forgets also about his past life. Thus, the Lord is not only all-pervading, he is also localized in every individual heart. He awards the different fruitive results. He is worshipable not only as the impersonal Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the localized Paramatma, but as a form of incarnation of the Vedas as well. The Vedas give the right direction to people so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to home. The Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Krishna, in his incarnation as Vyasadeva, is the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. The commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam gives a real understanding of the Vedanta Sutra. The Supreme Lord is so full that for the deliverance of the conditioned soul, he is a supplier and digester of the foodstuff, the witness of his activity, and the giver of knowledge in the form of Vedas, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the teacher of Bhagavad Gita. He is worshipable by the conditioned soul. Thus, God is all good, God is all merciful. Antaha pravishtaha shashta jananam. The living entity forgets as soon as he quits his present body, but he begins his work again, initiated by the Supreme Lord. Although he forgets, the Lord gives him the intelligence to renew his work where he ended his last life. So not only does a living entity enjoy or suffer in this world according to the dictation from the Supreme Lord situated locally in the heart, but he receives the opportunity to understand the Vedas from him. If one is serious about the understanding of understanding the Vedic knowledge, then Krishna gives the required intelligence. Why does he present the Vedic knowledge for understanding? Because a living entity individually needs to understand Krishna. Vedic literature confirms this. Yosa sarver veder giyate. In all Vedic literature, beginning from the four Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, and the Upanishads and Puranas, the glories of the Supreme Lord are celebrated. But performance of Vedic rituals, discussion of the Vedic philosophy, and worship of the Lord in devotional service, he is attained. Therefore, the purpose of Vedas is to understand Krishna. The Vedas give us direction by which to understand Krishna and the process of realizing him. The ultimate goal is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedanta Sutra 1.1.4 confirms this in the following words. Tat tu samanvayat. One can attain perfection in 3 stages. By performing the different practices, one can approach him and at the end, in the supreme goal, who is no other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, the purpose of, Prabhu, you have to scroll down. The purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Vedas and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined. Haribol?
Yeah, are you able to read the bottom? Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for reading. It's a very long purport, but the key point is that the Vedas give us the direction by which to understand Krishna and the process of realizing him. Right? I mean, they give a lot of other information also, how to wake up in the morning, which day to perform what kind of ritual. All of the rituals that you see in India are coming from Vedas, of course. And also in some parts of the world like Greece, they're also coming from Vedas. Like last night I was discussing that, there are parts of Russia and Mongolia, people worship Ulaanbaatar and in various places like Ulaanbaatar, they worship various deities. They're all from the Vedic deities. So, but the key point is, although they give instructions about so many topics, primary thing is to understand Krishna and the process of realizing Krishna. Any questions on this one? Okay, let's chant now and then conclude our class after chanting. Sri Krishna Chaitanya